Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Today you get, after I showered this morning, I did nothing with it hair. That's it. That's all you're getting. It got called fluffy at the coffee shop, so I guess fluffy hair is the hair that I have for today. Speaking of what I have for today, updates on the other channels. As I promised last week, I was going to start doing that. Just one video on the second channel this week. I meant to post like a Lucilius first kill for GBF on the other channel. I just didn't get around to doing it. And then also the Dragon's Dogma 2 character creator I wanted to post, but I need to edit some parts. And it's a pretty long video because I spent like 2 hours making that character. So I'd have to really edit it down. So that's a maybe. But with Dragon's Dogma 2 coming this week, I'd like to get that up on the second channel. But really just going over the patch notes for Grand Blue Fantasy Relink for the Lucilius patch for 1.1. All that's over there. This week, I would like to get, like I said, the character creator and probably a full thoughts video on Unicorn Overlord now that I've 100%ed it, or at the very least, I've gotten a platinum trophy. Whether or not that constitutes 100%, questionable, which will make more sense if you do watch the video. The VOD channel should have all of Unicorn Overlord uploaded this week. And then I'm going backwards and grabbing my Rebirth hard mode playthrough. Not my original playthrough, which I did off screen, but I have all the footage for. It would just be like, it'd be about 100 hours of footage. I think 92 hours of just like raw footage. I think even there's like a few parts where I forgot to press record, so there'd be like a weird jump cut here or there. But all the same, I'm just going to upload the hard mode that I did, which should be about like 40 hours. I think like each VOD is like 9 to 11 hours or something in that capacity. So that's going to be coming after that. And then Dragon's Dogma 2 is going to get uploaded onto the VOD channel starting, well, this week. And I am going to start playing Dragon's Dogma 2 this week on the 21st because, well, in recent times, I've taken to exercising a dual citizenship in New Zealand that I so totally have, and buying my games and playing them at New Zealand midnight as opposed to playing them at NA midnight. So I will be playing that. I think 5 a.m. is New Zealand midnight on the 21st. And I'm really looking forward to it because I'm just... please be good. Please be so good, Dragon's Dogma 2, please. I really, really want it. As for this week on the main channel, we are going to be having some 16 and 14 news. Obviously, there's this, and I'm not going to be releasing a video on this, but Quasi, who's another content creator, does WoW in 14. He's started doing interviews with a bunch of people in the 14 community, and I know he posted the one with Arthur's. I'm doing one with him live. Actually, when you're seeing this, this video normally releases at like 6:30 to 7 a.m. Pacific. At 8 a.m. Pacific, I'm actually going to be doing a thing. Is that on? Yeah. Okay, I just double checked my calendar. I just looked down at it real quick. And I'm going to be having a discussion with him about that stuff. That's going to be live streamed. I'm going to be live streaming that, but I'm not posting a YouTube video on that. So, yeah, I guess I'll just have to mention it maybe on next week's video to let you know where you can find it. But I think that covers most of the news for this week. So probably a minimum 3 or 4 videos. State of the Realm is also going to come back next week because Sly is actually going to be on vacation during PAX East time this week. So it's not really going to be a good time for that. But we will be covering a handful of things. I've already got like 3 or 4 shows planned out for State of the Realm. 2 of them are news related, 2 of them are not. So that should be a good time. Anyway, let's get into the Q&A itself because I just ate lunch and I'm like kind of phlegmy. So I gotta take little breaks between these sessions. Otherwise, it's gonna start really shining through. But thanks to the sponsors over on Patreon for supporting. See, this happens whenever I eat in the afternoons. Every time. I hate it. It's happened my entire life, and it's miserable. Yeah, so thanks to the sponsors over on Patreon. Don't have to support, choose to support. All my content's available for free here on YouTube, or of course you can watch it on Twitch whenever you want. We have those other channels for the bonus content as well, so be sure to check those out on top of everything else. And yeah, don't forget about SteelSeries if you're looking for gaming peripherals and whatnot. 12% discount year-round. That's in the description, almost like comment section. Now I'm going to look at the comment section and see what questions were asked last week. So let's hope there's some good ones. Oh, before I even answer this, I don't think I mentioned the Magic Spoon ad. Yes, I realize I forgot it. It's fine. There won't have been one on this video. So there's nothing to forget. That's the good news. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello. Hi. I hope you're doing well and thank you for the great content. thank you and glad you enjoy it. I've started working through the auto criterion dungeon with the goal of getting my shiny Astro weapon. Why is the dimensions on this slightly off? You notice that? I didn't change anything from last. Oh, maybe I like changed the zoom. I'll fix it after this. And my group is now on the second boss, which I find significantly harder to wrap my brain. You know what's funny? I find the second boss to be the easiest boss because it's literally just the rotations around you and every other mechanic is super, super easy. In addition to practicing it a lot, do you have any visual or memory tips for quickly figuring out the rotation mechanics? Mostly the personal ones. Yeah, the personal ones, honestly, it's that last personal one that you have to do. And during the like first major mechanic. But I mean, even when you have all the time in the world, the tiles, the mines also get a lot of people. I always think of it as no matter what, it's either going to be +1 or -1. So like, let's say that the open section is directly in front of you. You know, no matter what, your left flank or your right flank are going to be the only two options because it's always 3 or 5. If it's 3, it's what we like to call -1. So it's like if it's counterclockwise -1, that means that you know you're going like this, bam, it's on that right side. Or it's over 3, you know, rotating like that. If it's 5, then you know it's just adding 1 to whatever the directional swing is. That's how our group kind of described it to each other during Prague, and that's what worked to get us through Prague, and that was how I didn't have any issues with it. But it is just something that takes some getting used to, and I found that people who struggle with that mechanic, you get killed on that, or I'm sorry, you don't even get killed. You take the damage down on that first one pretty handily. The most important thing is getting used to doing it on the tiles because you can survive the mistake during the explosion section during the first mechanic and then when it repeats later. But the tiles is a wipe if you do it wrong. So making sure to put most of your efforts into taking that like 10-second period to get it right there is by far the more important thing. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello and virtual pets for the cats. Where is Ivy? Oh, they're both sleeping. They're like off camera over here. Not sure if this has been answered before, but with the 14 team reiterating a desire to have the option for new players to start post Heidelin and Zodiac. Yeah, they did mention that again this last week. Could you see that affecting MSQ dungeon and trial design and or a comprehensive training area as a requirement to understand the basics? I would assume that any system where they're letting you jump up to 6.1 story, I'd assume comes with some sort of other system in play. Because you got to remember, starting with 6.1's story is not as simple as starting with 6.1 story. Like, you need to... That's the equivalent of saying that you're gonna need a skip. Because, like, that's not... That means you're just starting at 90, which is kind of a big deal. So I feel like there's something missing in when they've been describing this, because it seems that's the #1 thing that hasn't been described is what you're actually doing to get through the story, because the story facilitates you getting to 90. So it's almost implied that you could buy maybe the level skip and then the story skip is just kind of like an option in game. But why would they do that when they already sell? They need to explain something further, because starting at level 1 in 6.1 story doesn't work. Bottom line. It doesn't work, and it never will work unless there's like a drastic change. So I don't want to comment on this too much because it's not even about a training area. It's, which I do think they would do in this case also. There has to be something that, I don't know how to put it, something that gives if they're going to remotely attempt anything like this. So I'm curious to see what they say, or I don't know. I don't really know how to comment on it. Like there's so many ways to do it, but I need to see what they say they're doing or what they're gonna do or what their plans are to do, whatever. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey Haps, hi, and an extra hello for Aurora. You mean Aloha and Ivy, not Aurora. I hope you're having a fantastic week. Inspired by your 1 to 16 marathon running up to 16's release, I've been slowly doing my own marathon as a previously 14 only player. I'm loving the Pixel remasters and finally started 5 the other day. In your opinion, what are the non-missable and favorite spin-off sequels and prequels in the Final Fantasy space? I already know I have a long way to go with the mainline games and MMOs alone, but I'm curious what else you would recommend. Honestly, most of the time I don't recommend a lot of those. There's some interesting things you can look at and judge, like Crystal Chronicles or... you know, if you really want to go check out Legends or Adventures, like there's that. And then there's been like other odd-off releases like Explorers and like there's like a handful of things. But honestly, the closest thing you get to quote spin-off sequels and prequels that are actually worth the time to go out of your way for if you've never played any of the old games. I mean, you're looking at maybe Crisis Core for 7. You're looking at maybe Advent Children as like a movie. You're looking at 10-2 out of curiosity, the 13 trilogy, making sure you play Zodiac Age for 12. Like, the problem is I don't usually recommend a lot of the offshoots. An offshoot in recent years that I would is actually Stranger of Paradise, especially after playing Final Fantasy 1, because you'll be able to draw a lot of parallels considering it's based in Final Fantasy 1's world and is like basically a retelling of like a certain angle of Final Fantasy 1. So not even a retelling, more like a prequel, but all the same. Yeah, but most of them, I would say just leave it alone, play most of them. Oh, one you definitely need to play is Tactics. That's one that, I don't know. I was thinking of all the ones I wouldn't recommend. I stopped thinking of the ones I would. Tactics is definitely one that you might as well consider a mainline game. So that definitely goes on the list. Definitely War of the Lions and Advance are the ones that you would go for there. And then, yeah, I mentioned Crystal Chronicles. Dissidia and Duodecim are okay options. Like, they're good games, but like they're kind of like weird recommendations to make. So it's like, I don't really know 100% how I feel about that. But yeah, those are other ones that are kind of worth it. And then, does that cover all of them? I mentioned Crystal Chronicles, which is only kind of a maybe, to be honest. Stranger of Paradise is, yeah, that one's good. Tactics. Yeah, I think all the ones I just named are it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but like I think that covers the more important stuff. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, Haps. Hi, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. First question. Cool. Having now caught up in most content until Dawn Trail for the next relic grind, could Square take the route of how Blizzard did unlocking flying? And wow, the player completes one quest line and allowing the option to complete subsequent relics with just tomes. So they kind of did this with Bozia. So Bozia has the initial quest line, but along the way of doing the initial quest line, there's several one-time steps that you never need to do again for subsequent ones. I don't think subsequent relics in their entirety should be tomestones. I think that tomestones should be an option the entire time you're doing every step, regardless of if it's your first or next one. The difference is having the ability to sit there and not just do tomes as well. I think the balance of having an option that is very much do whatever you want for people who log in, do roulettes, just they collect a few tomes just doing random stuff, and people who want to double down and have like concrete set goals that they can work on, whether they be objectives that rotate every 2 hours, or it requires going into old content, or, you know, just whatever, just something that gets you engaging with the game in a more direct manner. Those things are more valuable. Now, almost certainly the next relic is going to be around an exploration zone, so goals there would likely fill in those voids. But even then, you don't have to strictly make those all of the goals that you can possibly use in order to get it. Variety is the spice of life, but variety can be a lot of individual paths and not just a wide do whatever you want. And I think that's the approach they need to go for no matter what. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. I have a question about the release cadence of the gilded gold sync mounts. When do you think they will add another one? I feel like, when did we get the most recent ones? Like 0.3? It was weird because they also added the Weave Ray to that same NPC, but it was like you had to go and either farm or buy the items with the Fate gemstones, the vouchers. So that one was kind of a weird addition, which actually, though, is not really that weird. I mean, the idea that it still could be treated as a massive gill sync mount, and it's like highly coveted through that same means. I mean, I think we'll probably see something similar to the Wivray on release of Dawn Trail, and then another couple of gilded ones around 0.3. I think it was 0.3 for the monkey, and what was the other one? I remember, was it a sheep? I remember not liking the other one. I remember thinking that the latest ones were just kind of whatever, but all the same. Was it even a monkey? I have whatever the most recent one is. I'm pretty sure it was the Avenger. But yeah, I think that's when you can expect it. Very start of the expansion, about midway through. And honestly, I wish they would add more. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Howdy, Haps. Hi, a quick question regarding Criterion Dungeons. Hokey dokey. But slowly making my way through them all recently with a couple FC mates for the fun of it. I love the concept of Savage level 4-man content, but I wish there was a way to make them appeal to more people. My question is, what do you think they could do to get more people to play, and more importantly, replay Criterion? Have any sort of reward that isn't just a mount? Don't get me wrong. I do extreme trials mostly for the mount. mount. But this is not the kind of experience, even if you cut down the number of runs you need to do that, people really want to go in for strictly for a mount. I really feel like people want to have another method of earning gear. And this isn't for Savage. This is for normal mode Criterion, which I think they really, really need to hone in on. Are the weapons from Savage kind of a cool concept in theory, but you shouldn't need to make the tombstone weapon before you can do this upgrade. It's just so many layers in the reward structure that I just don't think works. So for normal, it needs to have some degree of gear progression, alternate gear progression, whether it be for people who just can't get 8-man groups or don't want to do 8-man content, or people who are trying to gear multiple jobs through both 8 and 4-man content. They cannot be afraid of offering it as an option if they want it to be taken seriously. As for Savage, I still am of the opinion that I'd like to see Savage kind of moved into a less of a no mistakes for 20 plus minutes kind of encounter, and them instead look to add some more. I think raising the HP and raising the damage dealt, I think that's still the right thing to do. But I think they should probably double down on the mechanics of the boss and make those better, and also make a Savage version, or a harder version, I should say, of the secret boss that shows up in the variant equivalent. It's such a waste to me that that secret boss just isn't present at all. And I think that can make for a really fun experience. Then you still need to nail the rewards correctly. I don't know that the weapon, the glowy weapon, is technically enough in this case, but I think you need something, or just scrap Savage altogether, add the secret boss into normal mode, and then focus more on the normal mode loot and fine-tuning that. Although having 4 bosses for 1 upgrade mat, kind of a scam too. So you might need to restructure the way that loot is done on a per boss basis. Maybe make it so that you earn tokens per boss instead of just at the end. And then you can use those tokens to get rewards. So even if you're only clearing 1 or 2 bosses, you can still eventually buy rewards from Criterion itself without having to beat all 4 bosses. You can maybe, if you want to make something really unique, make something that's only available to purchase after you defeat all 4 bosses, so that there's a little bit more motivation to not just farm the first 2 bosses. Have it like expand the loot table to include whatever that you can also spend the tokens on. So there's a lot of avenues they could take, but it really needs to be rewards, 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 more than anything, and prioritize the normal mode for those rewards. Hashtag Mr. Queen's Blood Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hi, how's it going? It's going all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Tell Aloha to crit more. No, he crits me enough as it is with his claws. What are your least favorite extremes and least favorite Savage or Coil encounters across the game? Oh, man, that's a loaded question. Least favorite extreme is probably Bismarck. Bismarck and Lakshmi are like at the bare bottom. They're so bad, both of them. I love Bismarck's music, and Lakshmi's music is also good, but the fights, and Byakko I hated doing on content, but I think that's really just the way it feels to farm. I think it's a really cool fight when you do actually do it. Those 2 fights, I didn't like doing them even on content. As for Savage or Coil encounters, there's a lot of really bad ones over time. I mean, you have Alt-Roit in Omega, who's just terrible. I don't like Guardian either in 07. What's another one I really don't like? What's it called? E7 is among the worst fights in the entire game. And then you also have, you have P6, you have turn 7, you have turn 3. And yeah, there's quite a few. There's at least one fight in each tier that's like really like low on the list. But I think the least favorite of all of them is probably E7. I think E7 is the one that earns my like bottom of the barrel list. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello. Hi. Hope you're having a good day. You too. So I watched your vid covering Yoshi-P's interview, and I wondered, do you think they'll go back to Stormblood level of job content difficulty? No, I think I mentioned this in the video, but I said specifically that I don't expect any sort of sweeping change to undo any of the quality of life that they'd incorporated over the last several years. And in fact, people have gone on to retranslate or recontextualize the translation to include that it's not like they're going to be trying to make the game, and I quote, harder. It's about making it so that there's, and as Yoshi-P says, more stress in playing the game, but stress that's meant to be like motivational towards completing the goal. He makes the great example of a side scroller with no pits for you to fall in, which essentially eliminates all of the stress of actually playing the game. Is it easier? Yes, but you've essentially taken away something that makes the game kind of a game and not just a walking to the right simulator. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. I don't expect major sweeping changes to jobs, but the important thing is if it's recognized that it's gone too far, that means it's unlikely to A, go any further, or B, we're likely to see some small adjustments to things that have kind of started to bother us, especially in this last expansion. Of course, the question is how much of that's going to deal with actual gameplay. Is the 2-minute meta going to go away? And I think if anything were to go away, it would be to some capacity the 2-minute meta. I don't think it's about removing it altogether, because there's always been a 2-minute buff timing in the game, but there's also been 1-minute buff timings, 3-minute buff timings, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, like depending on the length of the fight. And that's the thing that's disappeared, and that's what makes the game feel so rigid for a lot of people that play it on the upper level. I think that we're going to see a tiny bit of toning back for that, but I also think in exchange you're going to see the removal of things like positionals. So it's going to be like I think there's going to be a lot of trade-offs of old stuff that's like not really coming back, but it's being maybe slightly emphasized more, and stuff that is being taken away at the same time. It's a really big question about which things they'll do, and I think it's reckless to say it will be or should be or can be or must be one way or the other, because there's a lot of facets of the game that people would like just a tiny step back in, not strictly things like the 2-minute meta, which has been beaten to death over this expansion. The fact that it's been beaten to death over this expansion, I think, is the reason why I expect the gameplay to be the thing that kind of sees a little bit of a, I'll even call it a regression to some capacity, at least in some of its ideals. But I expect more skill consolidation, skill removals, the usual stuff that we get expansion to expansion at the same time. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello. Hi. During the content lull, I've been playing with some friends new to Final Fantasy XIV. I recommended to them doing the Dragoon quest before Heavensward, and was also probably going to recommend Dark Knight at some point before Shadowbringers. Which job quests are your favorite? I'm a big fan of Monk. I feel like there's a bit of a missed opportunity with Monk because I really wanted to see Vidargel really kind of accept his Alamegan roots. But in a way, he kind of does. He accepts that his heritage is more of a blight to the people of Alamigo than it is to be something that gives him some sort of precedence to govern them or rule them or even join them. He instead focuses on the thing that gives his life meaning, which is the art of the monk and passing on his teachings to other people who wish to be monks in the future. So I really, really enjoy his. I find Curious Gorge's storyline in the Warrior questline to be okay up until the last 10 levels, where it becomes kind of like a rom-com almost in a sense. And it's definitely my least favorite part of all of that. Dragoons is really good. Like you mentioned the Dragoon quest. I think Dragoon is some of the best 1 to 50 quest lines that you get, especially doing it prior to Heavensward. And Shadowbringers is, of course, one that a lot of people will kind of laud over. Black Mage, I think, is also fairly good, especially if you're someone who's into the lore of thaumaturgy and all the stuff that goes into that. But there's like, I'd say there's high notes and low notes across all of the lower levels. I will say this, do not recommend them the Paladin quests. Holy moly, I don't think there's any quest worse than the Paladin quests. Like, if there is, please let me know which one you think it is, because I don't know. It's not even like horrible, but it's so uninteresting and so uninvolved with Paladin itself. Like, it's just, you are a Paladin, and it's just lame, in my opinion. Also, do you think the devs would ever lock new quests or content behind completing all the rolled quests from old expansions? Yes. If they are ever going to continue the Void quests that are the result of the Shadowbringers role quests, then yeah, they're going to have to require them. I don't think they'll lock MSQ or anything super major behind it. I think it'll be side quests that will reward longtime players. But that's it. Nothing majorly important. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, Haps. Hi. Do you think Yoshibi's comments on adding more friction to the game will apply to healer job design? I think this kind of regurgitates what I said before. I don't think... Oh, for some reason, this one... I guess I get the point, but there's no read more for me, but clearly there's more because there's a ... Do you think adding damage to healing GCDs like a size to all healers would make them more? So, funny thing, I've actually said that if they want more engagement between the healing and damage factors of healing jobs, we need more stuff that has healing built into it or healing options that have damage built into them. I think that skills like Numa, for example, things like Macrocosmos, I think those are more interesting. There are situations where people want to optimize using those for their healing capabilities and for their damage capabilities. There's also situations where those abilities may be the best damage option, but there's not really a lot of healing required, but people work their way into seeing if they can actually pull that off. A great example is Macrocosmos in DSR Phase 5 during the Meteors. Like, is that technically the best place to use a Macrocosmos? No, but given the tightness of the DPS check and the fact that you won't really need Macrocosmos for anything in specific until the final phase, means that you now have this healer-centric DPS decision-making to make, where your healing skill is not only a healing skill, and it's also not only a damage skill. It fills both roles and gives it flexibility that is rewarding when you're on a job that can benefit from it. So I actually think that that is probably the best option for healers going forward. It's not to give them 3 dots to maintain while maintaining a GCD and then having a second GCD that procs off the first GCD. Could you do like would I be surprised if Sage could get a proc for a free Phlegma, for example, to make them somewhat more involved? No, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see them get that. Like, that's almost like instead of their free cure proc, like on their base heal, they instead get a similar like free cure proc on that. It's you get a free Phlegma that doesn't, you know, it's just nothing. It's free and you don't have to, it just or it like instantly gains a charge even, or like the charge time, like, I don't know, something in that capacity, you know, something that just makes, you know, extra Phlegmas like a way of optimizing the GCDs, or just something that's just not just pressing Dosis over and over again, you know, and then pressing Numa once outside of 2 minutes and then twice inside of 2 minutes, whatever. They need to make it so that when you make decisions, you have multiple options on how to use your kit. Do I use this skill for damage with a little bit of healing? Do I try to get the max out of both? Or do I strictly use it because it's like I need the healing at this point? That is how you get engagement out of Final Fantasy XIV's healer design, not by stacking a bunch of offensive skills on top of each other. Hashtag Mondays with Mrhappy. Hello, good sir. Hello. Hope all's been well. Doing all right. First of all, I just spent 5.5 months on T7S minimum. Oh, you know, it's so funny. I was just doing turn 8 Savage, low item level, not minimum item level, no echo. So we basically wore a bunch of level like 40 gear, a level 30 weapon, and did turn 8 Savages level 90s. We almost cleared it. We were trialing somebody, and after like 3 hours, we almost had to clear, even though like a lot of people hadn't done it or hadn't done it in ages at the very least, like myself. That was a lot of fun. Turn 7S, not as fun. I hate that fight so much, especially as a Fizz range. My immediate reaction to hearing I'll say cursed voice was more akin to a gasp for life. Please no. Second, since a group has cleared UCOB with Golden Bahamut damage buff, do you think there are any more major challenges left? Heal Cobb shouldn't be possible due to needing tank LB3, but I'm curious. So you don't technically need it, but you wouldn't survive with all healers. So if you survive the initial hit and then all of you deliberately staggered your heal so that there was a heal going off every like third of a second, just to make sure that no matter how the damage ticks happen, there's a chance, but it's not a very good chance. Even then, I think there are other things that would be a way bigger problem. Although maybe it just ends up looking like Death Cobb, who knows? All the same, there was one Neuralink. The same group did one Neuralink like a day later. They saw a comment under my tweet, saw single Neuralink, let's figure that out. And then they did it. What else is there to say? No, but I do think that I would like to see Ultimates kind of retuned and brought up to the new current level, you know, maybe level 100, for example, in the next expansion, just to bring more life into them, you know, bring up the amount of skills that you have. It's more fun to do. People might be more willing to go back. People might be more willing to jump in. And I think that's when Final Fantasy XIV is at its best, when it's preserving its game and the elements of it versus kind of just letting them rot. Hashtag Mondays with Mrhappy. Hey, hi. Does it make you uncomfortable when people call you attractive? Should we stop just trying to be respectful? Perfectly respectful way of doing it. I'd say more so I'm not. I'd say uncomfortable is actually the right word. I obviously, you know, I've put a lot of effort into myself over the past year. Some people seem to think this is sudden. It took me like 9 months to get to the way that I'm looking. I'm sorry, it took me more than 9 months. It's been almost a year at this point because it was really last April I fixed my eating, and then in May I started doing the gym. I took a month to do eating because I felt like that was the most important habit and I shouldn't try to do everything at once. And then after my eating habits were mostly resolved, which I'd say is still the case. I haven't really changed my eating habits since then. Then I put my effort into the gym and whatnot. And honestly, the eating habits is where I saw the majority of the weight loss. But it's like, just because I'm happier with the way I am, it doesn't make getting compliments easier. You know what? I don't know if that makes sense, because it's like the way somebody else sees you makes you think about the way you see you, and those ideals don't always match. So I'd say that right now it's more like a shy uncomfortable, whereas before it was like, how do I put it? It was like depressed uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like when people would be like, oh, you look cute, but that was like when I was, 220 pounds and I wasn't like feeling great about myself. So people said that, it was like, I don't even want that like topic to be around me because it makes me think about it. And then suddenly I'm like blocking out what somebody else says, just blocks out when you're struggling with like self-esteem and whatnot. Even if somebody says something nice to you, if you can't accept it, or it's difficult to accept because you don't see yourself in that same light, then any comment like that kind of puts you in that uncomfortable spot. There's also the simple fact that people have enormous balls on the internet, and they just full on thirst. You know what I mean? That can just be uncomfortable on its own, no matter what. Though that I've gotten a little bit better with in recent times. But it's just one of those, just like, like that's kind of the emotion where it's like, thank you. And so it's like, telling people to stop is pointless because it's the internet. You'll A, never reach everyone all at once. B, you'll never stop them. So it's more about like, just kind of, when people like say things, I'll just be like, hey. Like when people come in this stream and they're just like, wow, you look great. I haven't seen you in like the last year. You look great. I'm like, hey, thanks for joining. Yeah, I've just been doing my thing. That's it. That's my like instant deflection, move on from it. I've taken it, I've accepted it, I've processed it, I've moved past it. And it's like, it's a lot of thinking, but I'm a mass overthinker. So that's just how I have to like process my way through those types of situations. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Oops, forgot to, oh, it's an edited post. It was like, wait. Oops, forgot to say hi. So the funny thing is, you ratted yourself out as not saying hi when you wrote the comment initially, but then said, oops, forgot to say. Okay, let me tell you, I don't see these posts before Sunday. I will never notice if you edit in the hi later. Even if it says edited, I literally don't pay any mind. I only looked here because you said that. So it's fine and it's funny actually, but I'm just saying, if you forget and you want to add it in later, just do it. You'll be all right. Someone asked how you thought of Persona and other RPGs, but they didn't mention some important ones. Have you ever played anything from level 5? I think I have, but I don't know what. I'm a big fan of Ni no Kuni. Yeah, so Ni no Kuni I've played. Ni no Kuni 2, man, I wish that game was just a little better. It's like kind of naive, the writing and the castle building stuff was like kind of out of a mobile game, but I also kind of liked it. It was okay. I didn't really play much of the free DLC. Dark Cloud I haven't played. Rogue Galaxy I haven't played. I'd have to look at a list of all level 5 games. I haven't played Yokai Watch either, in case you're wondering about that. Level 5 Company, because there's a good chance that maybe I have. Oh, Dragon Quest 8. They made Dragon Quest 8, so there's that, I guess. I didn't play Professor Layton, although I have watched my friend play Professor Layton. White Knight Chronicles, no. I don't know what Inazuma 11 is. Ni no Kuni, there's that. Wrath of the White Witch. And then there's the mobile games. I haven't played that. I don't know what that is. A lot of Professor Layton in here. A lot of Professor Layton. There's Yokai Watch. I haven't played Yokai Watch or Yokai Watch 2 or any of them. No Wibble Wobble. No Layton's Mystery Journey. Yeah, so basically I played almost none of them except Ni no Kuni and some of the Dragon Quest 8. Is that the only Dragon Quest they worked on? Oh, and 9 it looks like. Is there any other one? Dragon Quest 9? Yeah, no, yeah. So just Dragon Quest 8 and Ni no Kuni. The rest, no, I haven't. I haven't played. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps. Hi. Good week to you, sir. Good week to you as well. Though we know you record this on Sunday. Listen, it's still for last week. It works out. My question is simple. What do you expect to see in PAX in the 14-hour stream? Thank you. I love your content. Super glad to see you doing super fine lately. Deserve all that and more. Thank you. So I don't expect much from PAX. I think we'll find out the release date, and I think we'll get to see the collector's edition. I don't think there will be anything else, in all honesty. The 14-hour stream, however, we should be getting a deeper dive into some of the other pieces of content that they have thus revealed, some more details about some of that stuff. But I still actually don't have, I feel like they've covered most of their bases pretty well up to this point, and that the one thing we all want is the combat stuff, which I wouldn't expect until May if they're going by their usual summer schedule, the summer schedule they've had for previous expansions, expansions prior to Endwalker, which all had a summer release, where we would usually get the combat related stuff in May. So that's what I think is the next big thing, but I do think we'll get some other small details from the other stuff as well. I think we'll also get the Final Fantasy 16 collaboration day. That's supposed to be in the first 10 days of April. So we'll 100% get that from PAX as well, whether it's from the 16 panel or from the 14 panel, maybe in both, who knows? But those, again, I don't really expect much other than a few small things at PAX. But you know, I'll make videos on it all the same because that's what I do. Hashtag Mr. Happy. Wow, this is from 56 minutes ago as I've opened this. Hi, Happy. Hi. I hope I'm writing this early enough on Sunday to squeeze it in barely. I'm here to ask if you know anything about what potential weapons future jobs could use and if there's been any mention of them in the game so far, particularly hammers, as I believe Yoshi P said he'd like to make a tank job wield them. I don't think Yoshi P's ever said that. I think he's acknowledged that people have requested it, but that's about it, because we do have warriors that use big hammers. But I know what you mean, you know, and I think he would know what you mean as well. I was hoping you could shed some light on any mentions or depictions. We have seen geomancers in the Stormblood areas. We know that as part of the lore. They're very similar to conjurers, just the Far Eastern equivalent, and they are featured in the Astrologian questline. They use bells. We do see bells used by the geomancer enemies, bells and talismans used by them in the Swallow's Compass dungeon, which is why a lot of people every expansion hope for a geomancer. It's just been something that's been in-game lore, and even if, yes, it's similar to conjurer, that doesn't mean what we get has to be similar. And then what else? You've mentioned, you know, maces, I suppose would be the better way. Instead of hammers, called maces. You know, I like to imagine, you know, like a one-handed mace and a shield or something like that is like a Templar kind of deal. Yeah, I mean, that exists, but again, there's not really much in the way lore-wise for it. I think it's more so we look at the weapons that have existed in 14's universe up until now, and we look at things that still haven't been done, and we think about what might be possible. I mean, dual swords versus dual daggers for Viper was one that was requested. Specifically, the Twin Blade has been a long time request. Whips has been a long time request. Beastmasters have used those, but we have seen Beastmasters using axes here, which is another thing. A one-handed axe instead of two-handed axes is another thing that people have been requesting, and there's more than enough cases of people using them, especially in the case of Beastmaster, which we know is going to be a limited job, but who knows if we'll even actually use axes on that job. And then, of course, we have Pictomancer, which, of course, uses a paintbrush. We all saw that coming. Some people want Gambler, you know, using cards, but it's not about what's written into the lore, because there's a lot of, like, really interesting and weird and different weapon choices amongst certain NPCs and characters that don't really match the player. It's more about creatively what can be done. And I think since seeing Sage with the new lifts, we really kind of know that just because we haven't thought of it yet doesn't mean they're not thinking of it. So think of it less of the lore and more of things that just exist in fantasy and in Final Fantasy specifically, but also in general fantasy terms that we haven't seen yet. And I don't think any of them are really off the table unless they're way too similar to something that we already have now. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Happy. Hi. Hope all is well with Grand Blue and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Yes, my Lucilius went well. I tried to solo Lucilius, and it was really easy to get to the end, but he has a DPS check at the end that with one person is very specific to do. So much so that it was just kind of eh. Just want to ask, you know why in T Brute Justice is referred to as Brute Justice, but Cruise Chaser is referred to as Blasty? Yes, there is a reason for that. He is also referred to as Blasty in his original fight, and that is because Cruise Chaser is not strictly based on the Final Fantasy IX boss by the name of Arc. Now, that it is, Arc is the origination for Cruise Chaser Blasty that we see, the transformations, But Cruise Chaser Blasty is the name of a late 80s Famicom game that would go on to inspire Arc and Final Fantasy IX. So as an homage to that late 80s game, his name is Cruise Chaser. That's why his name is Cruise Chaser in the first place. But Blasty is that like extra level of lore, Cruise Chaser Blasty. Yeah, you can just look it up real quick. It's the name of a game from, I want to say like 88 or 89. But yeah, it's a game from a long time ago. It's like an ultra meta reference that a lot of people just wouldn't get. Also, do you mind giving advice on how to cope on 14 burnout while catching up on ultimates before Dawn Trail? It's honestly, it's to just limit the amount of time on the game. Just don't spend as much time. I can't think of anything else. It's just, you just can't be on the game all the time. Like, yeah, if you're on for ultimates, good, but then step away. Just don't hang out on the game for like hours on end afterwards. You need to take a step away and take a break at some point. All right, my voice is kind of starting. It's not really starting to go, but like I definitely need to stop recording soon. I think you've been able to hear it probably throughout most of this recording. So I'm going to lightning around the rest of them. So apologies that the rest won't appear on screen. Do you ever think they'll update control and craftsmanship FC actions to go from flat buff to percent? Unlikely. I think that crafting and gathering in particular already have like too much strength when it comes to it. They don't want it to be any stronger. They don't need it to be any stronger. The amount of stats available is already like really high. Like I know that you want more, but I don't think they want you to have more, if that makes sense. They could update the values to make them higher flat values and then keep them in mind, but I don't think they'll ever do that. Then let's see. I saw somebody said they were building an airship for the FC. Why do they have arbitrary stats? I don't actually know anything about building airships, so I honestly couldn't tell you. Airships or submarines, I've never messed with either, so I apologize. There was somebody commenting about relic completionist stuff, but it was just a comment. It wasn't a question in regards to the way that Endwalkers is done. What's it called? What do I think of Akira Toriyama's legacy? I mean, for me, Akira Toriyama, obviously, I think back to Dragon Ball. I think back to Toonami. I didn't know what anime was as a kid. I knew what Toonami was. So watching the old Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z was fantastic. It wouldn't be till years and years down the line when I would see stuff like Dragon Quest and, you know, Dr. Slump and all of his other creations that, you know, are very recognizably Akira Toriyama. But I mean, dude left behind an amazing legacy. It's super sad to see him go, but we all have to go at some time. And honestly, all any of us can ever want is to have had that much of an impact on that many people's lives. So I think just keeping with that in mind and staying more, being less sad and being more appreciative of what you do have and what you were given is a better way of taking, like when a major worldwide figure passes like that. It's just for me, it's more positive. It's a better way of channeling energy instead of into grief, into thankfulness. So that's how I feel. I feel like he just left a lot behind, and anyone that's going to be picking up that mantle and helping continue it in his name is going to have a tall task ahead of them, because we just had some crazy good memories from all the stuff in there. Do you think 14 would do the Dragon Quest crossover again in honor of him? Okay, I'm going to be honest. I would prefer a brand new collaboration as opposed to rehashing the old one. I don't know why, but technically it would be the most honorable, I think, to redo the old one, because it's representative of work that's, you know, it's just representative of something that they've done before, of work that he's done before. Whereas but I'd prefer something brand new. If they're going to do anything for Akira Toriyama in 14, since, you know, we have had the Dragon Quest event, I think I'd prefer something brand new, personally. Then we have this one here. Wondering if I'll cover and play Eidon Chronicles. Considering it, I'm just trying to, I need to like plan out April, because Scarlet Blade is also, dude, I don't know why. I don't have a good feeling about Scarlet Blade. Like, yeah, ass and titties. But that's about it. Like, I don't know, because the demo that leaked, I didn't see anything. Oh, I'm sorry. The only thing I've seen of the demo is her walking up and down a ladder. And that's it. I haven't heard anyone who actually got to download it quickly enough to even talk about the gameplay. So it's like, I can't even like secondhand judge it yet. So I need to play it, because they've just been so averse to showing elongated stretches of gameplay that I just need to experience it. So that's Eidon Chronicles in April. There's Scarlet Blade in April. There's also, I think, Suikoden 1 and 2 Remaster in April. And then there's Saga Emerald Beyond, I think it's called. It's going to be a busy month. So I'm not sure. I need to like actually plan it out, but I do want to try it out. Especially I just played Unicorn Overlord, a game that handles a massive roster pretty well, in my opinion. So I'm feeling kind of in that mood to play something else with a massive roster, and Iden Chronicles would fit into that perfectly. Somebody asked, is Twitch the only place to see me play the other games? That's what the VOD channel updates are for. If you want to see me play them live, then sort of. I actually do stream on this YouTube channel as well. I don't save the VODs from this YouTube channel on this YouTube channel because otherwise it's going to flood your subscription boxes, and I don't want to do that to you, especially if I'm having like a bad internet day and it just keeps creating VOD after VOD after VOD, and then it's just a pain. So, no, so yeah, you can watch it on this YouTube channel, 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific, or you can go to the Twitch channel, watch it live, or catch the VOD channel, which at the start of my weekly Q&As, I'll be letting you know what's being uploaded over there, so you can go over there and watch it. Like I said at the beginning of the video, Unicorn Overlord full playthrough is being uploaded, one video a day. And then Rebirth, my hard mode playthrough will go up, and then I'm going to see if I can throw anything else over there on top of Dragon's Dogma 2, which will probably be after that. So I'm starting to be the one to be responsible for it, so that way it gets done at some point. Then we had another one here. A cooking question. I heard you talk about cooking steaks before. What are your thoughts on cubed steak? Cubed steak was my family's way of making me, of allowing me to afford steak as a kid. Cube steaks when I was a kid were like $2 for like a 6-ounce, like beat to hell piece of meat. And I loved it. And I still love it. And that's not including, I didn't even know till way down the line that that's minute steaks, as some people may know them as, used for chicken fried steak and can be made super tender and delicious. But I love cubed steaks. Preferably a chicken fried steak, if you're going to use a cube steak, would be the way to go, and beat it to hell and back to actually make it tender. Otherwise, yeah, it is a lot like eating a shoe, but a delicious meaty shoe. Who made the somebody very upset about the chain break in Alo Alo Criterion on the last boss? Yeah, that thing is ridiculous. I don't know what was going on with that tether. I don't know why the death wall is all messed up, and I don't know why it just seems like it's never been fixed or addressed. And don't worry, it absolutely upsets me too. And then we have another one. One question, something to do with focusing during raiding. Having ADD really doesn't help. Was wondering if I could borrow a trick or two. I don't have ADD or ADHD. I just do it. I don't have any issues with that. I just focus on the fight and doing the fight, and that's it. So I don't have any advice. So unfortunately. And then I think that's it. I think the rest are just comments. Yep, there we go. Anyway, that is going to be a wrap for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. If you have a question, put it in the comment section of the video below. I'll be sure to get to it next week. Be sure to like and subscribe and check out those videos on the other channel. There will be links in the description to those other channels as well. If you would like to follow them, it of course supports those channels on top of this channel because it's all me anyway. So of course, being a part of any and all of them supports me. So if you want to do that, go right ahead. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see all of you next week. And until then, take care.